Lush, Executive Editor at Hub Culture. It is Davos 2026, and I'm delighted to be joined by Nihal Arthanayake. How are you?
I'm good, Edie. I'm really good. It's lovely to see you. What a backdrop.
What a great place, right?
I know. This is the best green screen I've ever seen.
So, it was great to run into you in Davos, and I have to say I was a little surprised because I did not know that you'd made this transition from the BBC to a technology company. You're now Executive Director at Dava Studios. So tell me about that. What is it like moving from so many years interviewing, having conversations, being in the music industry to being in technology?
Well, the pace is very different. Mm-hmm. It's very transactional, but it's also super exciting. I mean, I'd done a lot of the BBC, and it sounds kind of weird and maybe arrogant to say it, but I felt like I'd completed it. Mm-hmm. I'd interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people from, I don't know, like Bernie Sanders to Elton John, mm-hmm. right? Not often said about in the same sentence. Ed Sheeran. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And it got to the point, Edie, where I was just feeling as though, where's the challenge in this anymore, mm-hmm. right? And then Dava, which is the company, approached me. A guy called Alistair Lukes, CBE, approached me and said, look, would you like to come on board and essentially be our head of storytelling mm-hmm. at a time when everyone's talking about storytelling, right? But the majority of people that I come across that talk about storytelling have never really had to tell any stories, right? Like I've interviewed some of the world's greatest storytellers, from novelists like Harlan Coben to directors like Oliver Stone to actors like Matthew McConaughey. I've been through all of that. Sally Field. I mean, lots and lots of storytellers. So I'm really, really intrigued by storytelling, mm-hmm. and by that I mean every time a mic goes up in a radio studio, before you speak, you have to know the beginning, middle, and the end of that sentence.
Got to take somebody on a journey.
Exactly right. So everyone talks about storytelling, but I did it for hours. I mean, just at BBC Radio 5 Live, it was 8 years, 3 hours a day, mm-hmm. right? I mean, that is a lot of storytelling. So it's interesting when you're kind of in a silo of your own making at the BBC, and then someone comes along and sees something and says, that'd be super useful for us. So yeah, that's how it became my new role, and I am absolutely loving it. After all, I wouldn't be in Davos. Right. I wouldn't be hanging out with you if I wasn't Executive Director of Dava Studios.
So I wonder, you've also talked about how artificial intelligence should expand human instinct. You're now in a technology company which is using artificial intelligence.
Yes, it is.
And I wonder how we can use artificial intelligence to encourage creativity, to encourage human connection, and how we are working on that within your new company.
Well, what's really interesting, I think, within Dava, we have unbelievable teams all around Europe, in fact, all around the world. There's 11,500 Indavans in 62 locations around the world. I think the interesting thing about it is our human teams, mm-hmm. right? And how they use their imagination, how they use their intellect to solve really difficult problems. And when it comes to creativity, I think what's interesting, especially with AI, and I've been around the music industry for a long time, mm-hmm. is how it's pushing humans to be super creative. It's interesting, if anyone has listened to, and I know you're a huge fan of Rosalia's album, Lux, gosh. Right?
Yeah.
Now, she even talked about, say, the song Berghain, which has got Bjork on it, and she said this is a kind of reaction to mm-hmm. AI slop, right? Yeah. Music. Right. This is only humans could have put together this extraordinary collage of sound that she did on that song, and indeed on that album. So, for the first time in human history, we face the possibility that we're not top of the creative tree. Therefore, we have to push ourselves even further into our imaginations and really explore what it means to be human. And I think that's an exciting challenge.
So I want to talk a little about diversity and inclusion. You really called out the BBC when you were there for
it was in every newspaper,
for a lack thereof. Yeah. And I wonder how you're finding things now that you're outside of the BBC. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing within technology. There's often quite a lot of discussion around the male, pale, and stale within the technology industry. We're in Davos, where let's face it, it's not the most diverse place, depending on where you go. And I wonder what you're seeing in terms of comparing where you've come from and where you are now.
Well, really interestingly, if you walk down the promenade, there's Kazakhstan house,
Yep.
and there's India house, and
Africa house, that's a fun one.
Yeah, Africa house. There is an extraordinary array of people from all over the world here. And what's interesting about Indava is yes, you could talk a good game about diversity, but ultimately Indava are after the best people. And the best people don't just exist in one country, they exist all over the world. So in our team, the engagement team at Indava, led by Alistair, we have Greek, Mexican, we have South African, we have American, we have, British Sri Lankan. There's a whole group of people there. And I think that's the difference, is that it's after the best people, and they know that the best people aren't just going to come from one geographical location. Whereas sadly, the BBC, certainly in BBC North, where I was based, talked a good game about diversity. They like to put out a press release. But when you actually walked into the building and looked around, yes, gender-wise, fine. But when it came to ethnic diversity, it was the worst place I've probably ever worked. Like, there were times I'd walk onto that giant floor, Edie, and I would be the only person of colour on that floor. And I just felt that was isolating. It was really affecting me. It felt quite lonely. Just simply because also you just want to have different conversations with different people from different parts of the world, right? Who have different world experiences. And that just wasn't happening. And I called them out about it. My name was trending on X. I was getting death threats.
Crumbs.
Every newspaper was coming for me. For a while, I felt like if I was going to walk out into the street, people were going to attack me. And I went to a Manchester United-Tottenham game to just kind of sense, right, okay, if the people who are just piling on hate and racist abuse to me on social media, maybe that's the place I'm gonna find out. And this big guy came up to me, walked right up to me, and I was with my son outside Old Trafford, and he went, "Can I have a selfie?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you." and I was like, "It's fine." But I called it out because, I don't know, man, you have to stand for something, right? And if you see something, and I was in a position as a presenter where I was speaking to younger members of staff who were people of colour, very few ones who were there, and they were so frustrated, they felt so alone, they felt unseen and unheard, and I thought I had a responsibility to call it out, so I did.
So you wrote a book.
I did.
Let's Talk, built on over 25 years of interviewing, listening, and I wonder now that you're in a technology ecosystem, and let's face it, data, metrics, growth are some of the important metrics there. How do you champion conversation and connection on a human level, and how do you make that a competitive advantage?
Well, I mean, what's really interesting about Davos is that, Davos isn't a collection of chatbots, right? Davos is
That's true.
thousands of people coming together to have conversations. In fact, you can't, it's quite overwhelming, the amount of people that are here to have human connection, right? They could stay and do this as a giant Teams meeting, right? The world's biggest Teams meeting, but they don't. People come in because they understand human connection. I was speaking to Kojo Anand last night, who's really, really an amazing ambassador for Africa, and was really talking about it at Sportico dinner, which you were at last night. And we were both Tottenham fans. We just discovered that within a few minutes. And immediately you've built a bridge there, right? Now, I don't know if we'd come across that if we were on a Teams meeting and he was in Accra in Ghana and I was in London. It would be really transactional, right? But this human connection, all of these tech people here, all of these people that are selling you AI, you can't walk past a building without AI on it,
insane,
right?
right?
It's insane, right? But they're all having human conversations, right? So that's not going to change. We're social animals, right? We can't exist just staring at a screen. Just look at the levels of loneliness since the pandemic, right? Especially amongst younger people who are they decided to work from home thinking it's a great thing. Yeah. I was talking to a young woman the other day who works in PR, and she was saying her friend is is really depressed because they're staying at home. So AI is making us really value human connection in many ways.
All right, final thought. How have you found Davos? What are you going to take away from it?
So I came in last night, you're having this conversation with the owner of Chelsea and then Professor Scott Galloway, and then you meet the famous Edie Lush and you're over the moon and you're absolutely over the moon. It's the highlight of your night. So it's first night. So it's been my first full day today. I've started it brilliantly by having a conversation with you.
I'll pay you later for that. Comment,
No,
thank you.
it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. No checks. And now I'm just going to absorb it. I'm DJing later on. I'm coming out of my BBC Radio 1 retirement to play some songs. I just want to absorb it, and I also want to kind of see if I can identify the mavericks.
Okay.
I want to hone in on some mavericks.
All right, they're out there. Nihal, thank you very much for stopping by the Hub Culture studio here in the cold. Despite it's beautiful and cold, it's Davos 2026. I'm Edie Lush.